Our guest for today is Matt Carhart. He is a personal development coach and mentor. How you doing, Matt?
I'm good. How are you today?
Great, man. Great. Thanks for coming, man.
Thank you so much for having me on. This is a true pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what I think everybody kind of recognizes personal development coach, and everybody knows what a mentor is in the context of like people in their lives. But what is a mentor in the context of what you are doing?
It's pretty similar to being a mentor in life. I find that, when it comes to teaching people physical activities, I use an analogy in the plumbing industry a lot, but you teach your kids how to tie their shoes or even how to walk, and you mentor them through that process until they've got it down so well that they don't need you or want you to help them anymore, right? And when it comes to personal development or making changes in our lives, a lot of times we get some advice or get some help, and then we're sent out on our own without any mentorship through the process, right? So we go out and we fail or we quit, we revert back to what we were doing before without ever going through that entire process. So a mentor is going to guide you through whatever process it is until you're ready to stand on your own.
So what are some things that you help people with the mentoring?
Um, Developing, it starts out with goals and developing habits, right? So anytime we want to make a shift or a change of any kind in our life, we're going to have to change something in our behavior. Otherwise, we're not going to get any kind of result, right? And how you think and how you feel determines how you act, what you do, right? And so if we force a behavioral change, usually we get some good short-term results, right? We see that with punishing kids. We see that with New Year's resolutions is a big one, right? Everybody makes resolutions around New Year's to lose weight, get in better shape, make more money, save more, do this, do that. And they force themselves to make some changes in their behavior. And after a few days or weeks, maybe a month, they're back to their old routines. Because they're not changing the way they think or feel about something. They're just trying to force a change in behavior. So when you mentor somebody through change or development of some kind, you're going to talk about thinking and feeling and change the way you think and feel about things, and then your behavior is going to change as a result of that. It's kind of like a cause and effect.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. We were kind of joking about the New Year's resolutions and how
Yeah.
people set their new goals and then they just fade away. So what are some things that people can do to keep those goals that they set um, in place and keep those things moving towards an outcome that is successful?
That's a great question. I mean, the first thing is write them down. Get it in writing, right? Get it out of your head and onto paper. When it's up here, it's just kind of like a fantasy or a dream, right? You get it written onto paper and it becomes real. Um, don't try to do too much at once, right? You set a New Year's resolution to quit smoking, stop cussing, lose weight, get in better shape, save money, and you do all these things, and you got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things going on. It's too much. It's an overload, and you're just setting yourself up for failure. So we change behavior one habit at a time.
Yeah, I'm the worst example of that. Michael knows I'm doing way too much all the time, but I feel like that's what motivates me. So what if I would agree with you that most people probably aren't going to be doing a ton of things at once. Most people are probably going to be doing one or two things and kind of striving for another goal, maybe at the same time. Um, and then you do have people that, I mean, look at Elon Musk.
Well,
That
yeah.
that guy's doing, I don't know, a lot
Yeah,
of 10, 20 things, 10 things.
sure. And at any given time, you're in a routine of some kind, right? And how did you establish the routine that you go through every day? Through repetition, right? So
Yes.
that
Yeah.
repetition is habit, and those habits are developed. And sometimes you develop habits by shock, right? Something happens that's so drastic that it shocks your system, shocks your emotions, whatever, and you develop a new set of behaviors to adapt to that or to prevent it from ever happening again. 9/11 is a great example of a shock to the system that caused a lot of people to change their behavior permanently, right? Um, Another way is through repetition. So if you want, you're doing all kinds of things at the same time, but that most of that is your routine now, right? You're not bringing new things to the table 10 and 20 at a time. You're just adding to the routine constantly, right? So it takes 21 to 30 days, depending on which research you look at, to develop or establish a habit. But depending on the habit, it can take months or even a year or more to fully ingrain that habit within you. Example would be someone that was a smoker for years and years and years can quit smoking for months sometimes and then go back, right? They've broken the habit, they've broken the nicotine addiction, they've broken the habit, and for whatever reason, something happens and they kick back, right? So they haven't fully ingrained that non-smoker within them yet through enough time passing. But after 21 to 30 days, the habit is set, right? So if you write down a goal, say your goal is, I want to lose 20 pounds, right? And so there's going to be a list of behaviors that you're going to have to adapt or change in order to lose that weight, right? So eating right is probably going to be one of those things, right? So if you sit there and make a list of all the stuff you eat and you're like, I do this, then you have this whole long list of all the things that you're eating wrong. It can seem very overwhelming to be like, I got to change all that at once just to lose 20 pounds. But what if you just start making those adjustments for a few days at a time, then adding on a new adjustment? Like you cut out sugar, right? And then maybe 2-3 weeks later, you cut out the extra this or that, the soda, whatever it is. Over the course of a very short period of time, 6-8 weeks, you've now developed 3 or 4 new habits towards your eating that are going to lead you to long-term success. Whereas if you do it all at once, you feel like you've just cut yourself off at the knees, and you have a frustrating moment or a frustrating day, and it's just too overwhelming. It's just too easy to just go, this is useless, and go right back to the way you were before.
So write it down. That you would say that would be step 1. Write it down.
Yeah, you have to get it out of you and onto paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be going to bed and I'm thinking about something. Everybody's done that, I'm sure. You're laying in bed and you're thinking about something. You're like, oh, I got to remember that for tomorrow. I learned a long time ago, I get up out of bed, I text myself, because I programmed my own number in my own phone so I can text myself. And then, or depending on what it is, if it's work related, then I'll email myself whatever I want to remember. And then there was a point where, I still have my little, daily book that I roll around with. I'll write stuff in there too. But yeah, I try, and I found out once I write it down, I go back to bed, I'm good. It's out of my head 100%, because I know with confidence that tomorrow when I wake up in the morning, it's going to be right there. It's going to remind me, my phone, the email, whatever.
And a lot of times by doing that, you don't even need the reminder, right? Just the act of doing that causes you to remember.
Yeah, I realized so I set my alarm in the morning, right? Let's say, for example, I set it at 5 o'clock. I actually do a second alarm sometimes at 5:05 for something that I want to remember first thing in the morning. So that I get that alarm, I wake up, and then 5 minutes later, that other alarm goes off. But I realized that as soon as the 5 o'clock goes off, now I remember already that the second alarm's coming, and I already know what it's for. Like, I already remember.
Yeah, you programmed yourself the night before by taking those steps, right? You programmed yourself to, remember to do that thing. We do it with all kinds of morning things. Fluffing the clothes in the dryer. I got to remember to fluff the clothes in the dryer before I get in the shower tomorrow morning.
You should fold your clothes as soon as they're...
I don't have anything to do with any of that stuff. I'm just using an example.
I'm just kidding. Step 1, write it down, get it to paper. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. There's a beautiful exercise that we do. It's a goal-setting exercise that I love, and that is where it's like a brainstorming exercise, right? You just take 10 minutes and write down as many goals as you can. They don't have to be fancy, like spend more time with my wife, take my son on a walk, take a vacation to here, take a vacation to there, take a vacation to here, get a new car, get a new pair of shoes, get a new watch, whatever it is. Just write down, like it's like a want list, right? And just crash through that thing and just keep your pen moving for 10 minutes. And you'll be amazed at the things that come out of you.
I never thought about those personal things. I've never written those down.
I take somebody through an exercise of getting 50 goals written down, and almost everybody gets to the late teens, early 20s, like, I don't have anything else. It's like, well, do you have kids? Yes. How many? 3. Okay. What's something you'd like to do with one of your children? Do. What's something you'd like to do with another one of your children? Do. And then that just opens them up, right? Or a friend, or a parent, or a relative, right? A brother, sister. You start opening up that door, and then all of a sudden you've got a list of things that you could do, that you want to accomplish, that you want to have.
Huh, you just made me think of something I never thought about before. So all my text and my emails and the extra alarms I set, that's all like business, work related. You got to do this, you got to do that. Send this email, make this phone call, sign this contract, send this whatever, right?
Yeah.
I never do it for personal things. The personal things I just kind of do on the fly.
Yeah.
That's interesting, man. I'm going to try to incorporate that.
Cool.
Like write that down.
Very cool.
Huh. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So what would be, obviously, I mean, the natural thing in my mind is after you write things down, step 2 is the follow through, or you're starting the follow through or taking the steps for the follow through.
Absolutely. I like to break it down into kind of like a 3-step process, broadly speaking. So goals, first thing is you got to write something down that you want, and then habits, and then vision, right? Goals, habits, vision. So your goal that you want, and then you're going to list some things down that some behaviors that you're going to have to engage in order to accomplish that goal, right? And then at the end of those behaviors, when you accomplish your goal, you're going to have a vision of what that's going to look like when it's done, right? The human mind is a goal-seeking mechanism, right? It loves to be doing something, loves to be going after something. So when you paint a vision in your head of what that's going to look like when you're done, and you revisit that vision often, you're going to naturally guide yourself towards that outcome.
So what would be a good example? Let's not use working out because everybody uses exercise and working out.
Cool. Let's not then.
What's another good one? That's not working out and it's not like work.
It's not working out. Income.
Okay.
You got an income goal? You want to, how about a vacation? So that's can be an income related goal, right? Time off, money to do it. And you want to take a vacation to, where's a good place you'd like to go? Mexico, Hawaii, Ireland?
Let's go to the Maldives.
The Maldives, okay. So you want to go to the Maldives with your family?
Man, that costs a lot of money. Can I leave?
What do you want?
He wants to go by himself.
I didn't ask you how much money you have. What do you want? What do you want to do?
I like to take everybody,
Okay.
But okay.
Can you define who everybody is? Because I want to go. You gonna take me too?
Yeah. See, my friends.
So who's on your list? What you're gonna write it down? Right? You're gonna write it down to go to the Maldives.
I mean, it'd be nice to take if I had a want versus my wife, my kids, one of my daughters is married, so her husband, her kids. So yeah, you're probably up to a dozen people right there.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Take a dozen people on vacation.
And I'm gonna interrupt our dream here for 1 second and just point something out. So what we tend to do when we start to write goals is we immediately put a lid on it, right? It's like, oh, that's expensive, just me, right? So we tend to limit ourselves all the time for various reasons: time, effort, money, self-confidence. There's all kinds of reasons. But so you want to take a dozen people to the Maldives. How much is that going to cost?
I'd say it'd probably be, if you're like being conservative and just having a good time and kind of middle of the road, it's probably $3,000 a person, I'd say.
Are you a big budget guy? Do you budget your finances all the time?
I save money.
Okay.
So I don't have to budget. Like
Okay.
I do budget. Yeah, I actually created an Excel spreadsheet and I share it with other people as well that have troubles with budgeting.
Cool.
But yeah, I budget to the extent that I like to have a buffer zone where I don't have to worry about it.
So you're not a paycheck to paycheck guy.
No.
Okay. So when if you were to do something like that vacation, you're going to want to know what it's going to cost before you book the trip. You don't have so much money that you just go, yeah, let's go tomorrow. Or do you?
I don't know. What were you saying?
I want to go. I think you should put me on the list.
Right.
Just kidding. Most people if they're gonna take a vacation like that, especially one that most people would perceive as an expensive vacation, they're gonna have to know what it's gonna cost, and they're gonna have to make sure that they can budget for that money, right? So you're going to write down vacation to the Maldives. Then you're gonna have a list of people that you're gonna take. If you're funding the whole thing, you're gonna have a list of people that you're gonna take, how much it's gonna cost for all of them, and then you're gonna compare that to your budget, right? So you're gonna have a list of things financially that you need to make sure are in order before you can take that trip. If you don't have all those things in order, then you're going to have a goal there, right, to make that happen by such and such a date, right? So everything that you do with goal setting should be measurable in time and space. How much by when?
Yeah.
How much by when?
let's say
How much by when?
let's say you're going to take 4 people on vacation.
Okay.
It costs $3,000. This is like overseas
Sure.
kind of dream vacation for that's what people usually do when they go overseas, kind of the place they want to go. And so you're talking about $12,000 there, maybe for 4 people, or maybe it's less, maybe it's $8,000. So the point is, you want to save money every paycheck, set the goals. Okay, it's going to take me this long to save up this much money, plan it, follow through, do that, put it to paper. Yeah.
So
I probably picked a more complicated scenario.
we can make it. We can back it off because you're getting into some very good space with goals. And what kind of goals should we set? Long-term goals, short-term goals. Should we have a pie in the sky dream? Should we just concentrate on little daily things month out? So those are all great places to visit. So, but what we're trying to move away from is, we should go to the Maldives someday. And then that someday never comes, right? You're like, we should.
Yeah, that's the point.
So the point is to how much by when, right? I need to spend more time with my wife. Okay, what are you going to do?
Right.
When are you going to have that accomplished by? So we can start saying I need to spend more time with my kids. I need to spend more time doing this. I need to do this. I need to do that. Let's say how much by when. So when you get it down into that measurable aspect, then you can start to chunk away at it, right? You can say, all right, if it's a $12,000 vacation and I've only got $1,000 a year that I can budget towards the vacation, that's a dream vacation that I'm looking at way out here, like 12, 15 years from now. Well, that's not good. It's going to be really hard to stay motivated and on track towards that vacation then if you're not busy doing some other things, some milestones along the way, right?
So I have a great example, I think, for this.
Okay.
So I actually made a schedule for my household here. It's Monday through Sunday, the whole entire week. It's mostly for my kids. But my wife and myself, we are incorporated into the schedule at certain points. So it starts at when they wake up in the morning, brush your teeth, eat, get dressed, be ready by the door at this time for school. They're boys, so I got to focus them,
Oh, yeah.
They're all over the place. And they're 12 and 13, so they're usually like not ready and over there fighting. And you're like, the fuck is going on here? Come on, guys. So, and then it carries through the whole day. And then get home from school, get picked up from school, come home, do your homework, do your chores. And then it even has on there the days that, because they do jiu-jitsu, and we've been slacking on this, but it is on paper. It has the days my wife will take them and the days that I will take them, and it has everything mapped out all the way until bedtime. And I knew I have some rental properties. I had a tenant. She had this little buzzer thing. It used to just go beep. Like if I was over there picking up rent, or if I was over there fixing something, it would just go. I'd hear it go off, beep. And one day I asked her, I said, what is that? She said it was her daughter's schedule. Like it would beep at certain times throughout the day. And I think they had it to paper where it matched those times. And then she would have to do certain things. And her child was very disciplined, and not to a super strict way, but very in a more productive way.
Sure.
Yeah, and her kid was happy, bubbly, and focused, because she knew what she was doing from minute to minute in her day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah.
so having a schedule or a routine put into place to keep you on track throughout the day that's an amazing thing. And it's very important, especially when we're mentoring our kids, right, on how to navigate life.
And it's hanging up on the wall upstairs.
Yeah.
So they can see it.
It gives them structure, it gives them discipline, it gives them something to shoot for. Is that just the way it is, or is there a system of reward when that schedule is adhered to?
Yeah, so in the schedule, there's free time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like once you get done with all, when you get done with your homework, you get done with your chores, there's free time. Like this is your time to do whatever you want to do with, and I do have on a couple days, like on the weekends, they're kind of like blast tasks. Like I just tell them like, hey, I'm going to have random things I need help with. Because if I'm putzing around on the property doing things, I may need your help for like an hour.
Sure.
So that's on there as a plug. It's just kind of like, hey, I don't really know what I'm going to ask you to do, but on these days I'm going to ask you something. And then I give them space too. There's days on the weekends I don't ask them for anything, and I plan out, let's go fishing, let's go camping, let's go do other things. And even though I'm burning up inside, I want to be here doing things because I have a lot of work to do on this property. Mm-hmm. I force myself to go camping for 2 days. And I'll even be sitting there like, I'm enjoying it, but I'm like, okay, get back to what I want to do. But I have to force myself because I need that for their mental well-being, for their mental health. I can't force people to be crazy like me. And, I and hopefully I'm teaching them the same balance where you can really take care of business in life and then have that free time that you have to fit in there for yourself. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. It's super important. And some of us just seem to be naturally wired in different ways, right? So some of us like to kick back. Right? Just put your feet up for hours and hours. And other people, you tell them to kick back, and 5 minutes into it, they're wound up and they're getting ready to just like launch right off the pad, right? So, but having your balance between there is so important. We talk about work-life balance a lot, but even just in your free time balance, what are you doing with your free time? And it should still, at some point in time, it should still come back to what's important to you, right? What drives you? What are you passionate about? What's going to have you feeling fulfilled at the end of it all? At the end of the day, at the end of the year, at the end of the life? Where are you going to find your fulfillment?
Yeah, and that's very specific to the individual.
Yeah, absolutely. And it should be. It's very hard to drive people to do things that they don't want anything to do with at all whatsoever.
Yeah, there's no normal societal thing that makes everybody happy.
Right. But there's always going to be, not always, but there's usually going to be aspects of certain things where we might not like the task at hand, but we're interested in the end result, right? You've got a whole room full of that stuff sitting right behind you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And some guys that work out love the pain of the burn of working out, and other people hate it, but they still do it routinely because they like the end result, right?
Yeah. I worked out yesterday with my 13-year-old, and I'm terrible. Like, I've worked out for so many years that these days I don't really work out. I want to get back into it. It's in my mind, but it's always that it's one of those luxuries and those free time things.
Oh yeah.
I classify it as free time, not work. For me, that's fun time.
Yep.
Which I don't have time for, but I need to make more time for it. But anyways, I'm working out with him yesterday, and he said this before, but I've kind of ignored it. But yesterday he was saying it again. He said, man, my arms are vibrating. And I'm like, I told him, man, back in the day when we were working out, that's when we just started getting going. Like, like after a half hour, you're just, and your arms start feeling that way. That's when you want to tear them down more and just get, launch yourself over the threshold there to more gains. But
where did we go? We were on our vacation. We were planning our vacation.
Yeah.
So we got, and so we were talking about budgeting the money for a little bit. That to some people, that's all of it, right? But to other people, that might just be, yeah, we've got the money. We just need to make it happen. The point with all of it is if you've got a goal written down, then you can start breaking it out into the if it's a bigger goal, you can start breaking out into smaller goals or steps along the way. Like if you had a goal with the vacation, if you've got the money and you can get the time off work and the kids can get the time off school, you're going to do it during the summer, and your wife can get the time off, then it's just a matter of booking it, right? And sometimes we just get so caught up in life, we just don't make the time to make the reservation.
Yeah, and
right?
so I feel like some of the processes in there have nothing to do with money. A lot of the processes in life with growing our personal development have nothing to do with money. I'll do so much stuff and I won't spend a dime.
Yeah.
I'll be doing lots of things. A lot of it's physical.
Yeah.
But I won't spend any money. I'll be out, I do a ton of landscaping on my property and I won't spend a dime.
Yeah.
I'll be out there with the shovel and, grading areas and getting areas prepared. At some point I'll have to spend money.
Sure.
Right? Because if you want to put a plant there or if you want to, build a little wall or whatever you want to build, at some point you're going to have to purchase it or, and you may even find some stuff for free on Facebook Marketplace and not have to spend any money at all.
Yep.
And then it's just all these processes of you physically doing all these things and making all these getting through all these steps that you're planning for the outcome for.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's you got to brought up another great example you could have is landscaping your house, right? Landscaping your house, that's a goal of yours, right? To have the finished product. So what does that look like? When do you want to have it done by? So you can say, okay, I want my house completely landscaped by this date. Well, what does that look like when you're done?
Oh, I would pick tomorrow. If that was
No, I mean, what in your head? What is the vision? What does it look like when it's landscaped?
Right.
So then, when you know what it looks like, then you can say, I mean, if you've got months worth of work to do to get it to that finished stage,
right,
and winter's coming, and it needs to be done, you got to get your sod in the ground by October so it can have time to take root before it goes dormant for the year. Then you've got a timeline now established, and you've got things that have to be done. And when you start to break out those things, then you've got sub steps or micro goals in the bigger goal or the bigger vision, right? So if your vision, just for sake of the conversation, if your vision of this house fully landscaped is this, you're gonna have a lot of little things that you need to do, and maybe you've done it so many times that you don't have to write it down anymore, right? But if you're teaching somebody else how to do it and they've never landscaped a yard before, they could just be like, yeah, there's no way we're going to get all this done by October 30th. No way. And once you start to break it down into manageable pieces, then the lights are going to start to come on and they're going to start to embrace it more and more, right?
And then the follow through. That's like,
and then the follow through.
That's the biggest, to me, that's the most important thing for me. You can think about it, write it down, dream about it. If you don't follow through,
you got to do something, right? Action is the watchword of the day, right? If you're not doing anything, you can plan and plan and plan until the paper's gone and the pens wore out, but you got to do something,
right?
The follow through. So when you start breaking it down into manageable pieces or pieces that somebody can see themselves getting to that point, like I can see me doing that, then go do it. Cool. Now you're here. Now, what's the next logical step? Okay, do it there. And then the next logical step. So you start out with a bigger goal here, and then you break it down into sub-steps. I mean, when Sir Edmund Hillary summited Everest for the first time, he didn't just wake up one morning, a couch potato, and throw a pack on his back and head up to Everest, right? He had all kinds of sub-goals and sub-steps. If you decided that Everest was your goal, and you've never climbed a mountain before, well, you might want to take some mountaineering classes. You might want to start walking, hiking. So there's all those things that go into it to get to that big Everest goal. And in the context of what we were talking about with the landscaping here, that Everest goal is that finished product, right? That finished, fully landscaped, beautiful piece that when you put it, the picture of it on Facebook or wherever you want to have the picture of your landscaped yard, if you're turning the property over as an investment or if it's just for your own personal satisfaction, than just you standing out on the street like this. That's your vision of what it looks like when it's done, right?
Oh, I'm going to be up there grilling and eating.
There you go. So now we got to it. We finally did it. We got to it. That's the why, right?
Yeah.
The why behind all of it.
And be surrounded by those. I've planted over 100 trees up there. So
yeah, see?
Yeah.
So that gets y'all. That's the emotion. That's the reason you're doing any of it, right?
Yeah.
Is for that feeling you get at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I love just hanging out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that manageable goal idea is key. It seems that that's probably the reason most New Year's resolutions, like we talked about, fail, because it's always, I'm going to be healthier this year. So on January 1, I'm going to run 5 miles every day for the rest of my life. And then you try to, maybe you could run 5 miles on January 1, but then like January 2, you ran 5 miles and you haven't done that in a year, and now your body's broken and you have to take a week off. So the manageable goal thing, I think, is very... Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. If you took and almost every step along the way of most of it is going to be some kind of a behavior, an action step of some kind, right? And those action steps, if they need to be repeated towards a goal, those are going to be habits. If you worked on forming a new habit for 2 to 3 weeks, after 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to start getting where that habits kind of starts to come more naturally, right? You don't have to force yourself as much to do it every day. Certainly after 3 to 4 weeks of doing it every single day, that habit is there. Then you can add another habit, and then you can add another habit, and then you can add another habit. So you're always working on one new habit and then one established habit, and you start stacking them on top of each other. If you did that for a year, if you established 12 new habits towards whatever goal you want, whether it's fitness or getting stuff done around the house, imagine what that would look like at the end of just 1 year.
Oh yeah.
And then you compound that over a couple of years. I mean, you can literally change your entire life in a very short period of time just by establishing new habits.
And
one
doing
at a time.
And doing the follow through.
Yeah, that is the habit is the follow through
right.
is what forms the habit.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yep. The habit. If the habit's there, the follow through is inevitable.
I have 2 great examples in my own personal life of how habits can change your life in a very short period of time. And when I got into this work, I've been interested in it, which is another thing maybe we'll get into later. I've been interested in it for a long time, but when I got serious about it, my oldest daughter, who's now graduated high school, she was struggling mightily in school academically, and not because of a lack of intelligence. Virtually nobody has the lack of ability to graduate high school, but she wasn't doing her schoolwork. She wasn't happy. She was failing miserably, and we brought her to live with us and just let her kind of decompress from the situation she was in before to live with us for a few months. And then I went into her room one night and I just sat down with her and I said, sweetheart, what is it that you want? What do you want in relationship in regards to your academic career? And she broke down, cried, told me what she wanted. And I just asked her, what's holding you back? And we just had a good conversation. And then we talked about 2 habits. Right? She just needed to change 2 habits. And she changed those 2 habits. And one of them was doing all of her homework before she did anything else after school. She actually ended up getting most of it done before she even got off school grounds. She went from D's and F's to A's and B's like that, just overnight, just by changing in those 2 habits. Right? And anybody can do that. Anybody can have that conversation with their children. And if they want that, and you find that thing that they want and teach them just a couple of things, then change just like that.
Yeah, procrastination is the worst thing, not just for homework for kids, but for anybody.
It's a complete, and there's a bunch of different reasons that we do it. And I'm guilty of a few of them. I procrastinate some things in my life. I get right on other things. And sometimes we do things so that we can procrastinate on other things. It's called avoidance behavior, right? When you're doing this to avoid doing that. But it's self-destructive. It's very self-destructive.
Yeah, I was the king of procrastination with homework when I was a kid. I would wait until like the day before, even if it was a big report or something I had to do, and I'd whip it out. And I got good at it, you know? But I tell you what, I didn't just do it the night before. I did that report for all of the days from when it was due because it was on my mind every day. And I would think about it. It would stress me out. I knew it was coming. I knew it was due. It was terrible. To me, when I do that, it's as if it took me that long to write it. Whereas if I'd have done it right away, off my plate, free and clear. But it has a threshold on me. If I don't do something, it has a chokehold on me.
Oh yeah.
Where I'm just like it's as if I'm writing it the whole entire time anyways, and I'm not even touching it.
It's so much more. It's so much worse than that too, right? Because it just puts you into that stress response all the time. Right?
Yeah, you're not doing other things.
Yep, and you're just
as efficiently.
Yep.
Yeah, you're thinking about that thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I work in a creative field, so sometimes I'll have a project that I need to work on, and because I don't know what to do with it yet. You got to sit down, you got to ingest all the material, figure out what's going to happen with it, and sometimes I just don't know. So I'm going to let it sit or whatever, and I'll come back later. But the whole time I'm doing something else. So I'm in my yard landscaping or whatever. I'm thinking about that the entire time, and I feel like, well, I can't go to the store because I got to do this work. But I'm not actually doing it right now. I'm just thinking about it. But like you said, it has a chokehold. I don't. And then I feel like I worked the entire day, and then at the end of the day, I sit down and I'm like, I didn't really get much done today.
Nothing else either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I wonder, and I'm not telling you how to manage what you do, but just a thought that came to my mind, and I've been in similar situations. What if you try to chip away at the obvious things? There's low-hanging fruit in some of those scenarios that like, okay, I have to do this project. Can I at least get the spreadsheet going? Can I at least get some notes going?
Yeah.
Because if you attack little angles, then it kind of narrows down the overall thought.
Well, what I do know is that I can sit down and make something, and it might not be the best product, but then it's done to an extent, and I can go do something else, and I know that I've done the work. And if I can come back and look at it with fresh eyes and say, okay, that needs to change because that wasn't right.
Yeah, at least you make some gain on it.
But there's some sort of anxiety there, right? And that's kind of like a lot of people who are in creative fields, like that, some sort of block, whatever they call it, right? There's some sort of anxiety there about like making something that's not good, and you want to do it right the first time, but I know logically when I think about it, if I do it and it's bad, I can just fix it later. But at least I've done something then, So it's like getting past that roadblock a little bit.
Yeah, and we all. I mean, I do it all the time with big projects because I want. If I have got a project that is going to be, it's going to take me a couple 100 hours to accomplish, and I don't want to sit down and work on it for 30 minutes because it feels like it takes me that long to get wound up into it, and then I have to quit. So I just, if I can't sit down for 3 or 4 hours, I find myself resisting doing it. So I have to stop and say, wait a minute here. Okay, you've got 2 hours. You can get a lot done in 2 hours if you just sit down and start working. It only takes you 3 or 4 minutes to get into it. But it's sometimes you have to just constantly remind yourself, right? You have to be your own best manager. And that comes to managing time, managing procrastination, managing your thinking. Managing your thinking is so big, right? Because when you get control of your thinking, then the rest of it's going to start to fall into place.
And what about deleting? Because one thing that came to mind while you were saying that is, to my mind at least, is as you're trying to do things and make accomplishments in your life and form habits, what if you're keeping bad habits on the side and trying to have both at the same time? I was thinking that bad habits would almost be holding you down. And what do you do to shake those bad habits that are kind of interfering with the growth of better habits?
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's such a fundamental part of it. And anytime we have a bad habit, we're going to replace the bad habit with a good habit. So you take that bad habit, procrastination. What is the exact opposite of procrastination? Do it right now, right? You just said it a minute ago. You just, boom, get it off your plate right now, right? So that bad habit of procrastination, you're going to replace it with a good habit of just doing it. Whatever it is, just do it now. And you can, obviously, there's some that are pretty obvious, like smoking is a bad habit. At least I think most people are on board with that by now.
So yeah, I smoked. Both my parents smoked.
So did I.
All my friends smoked.
Yep.
So I started sneaking cigarettes when I was like 12, 13. Smoked through all of my teenage years. Yep. When I was 19, I quit smoking. I just was looking at this thing. I got so pissed off because this little thing that's smaller than this pen
was running your life.
Is controlling me. It's like, it's just like punking me daily, right? All day.
Yep.
Just controlling me. And I said, I just got so pissed. I was just looking at it like, fuck you. I hate you. And I just threw it down on the ground. I quit cold turkey personally myself. Yep. I'm lucky. I know that's hard for a lot of people, but I got lucky. So and I was young too.
Yep.
I mean, of course, it's going to be easier, but I threw it down. And actually when I was 19, that's when I started working out. And that was what I did and I became very passionate about it. And I would just worked out all the time. I'd work out every day, twice a day. I'd take some days off, obviously, but, yeah, I weighed probably, I was 19 years old. I probably weighed 155, 160 pounds. Never did anything as far as working out ever. I was the kid when I was in elementary school. I was in the back of the gym and our coach would be having us do jumping jacks and drop down, do burpees, push-ups, all that stuff. And I'd intentionally go in the back and he would walk back and forth. I've told this story before. I don't know if you remember, but he would walk back and forth. And he would just not even look. He'd just still be walking back and forth. He'd just talk. He'd say, "Mr. McAllister." He said, I'd be like, "Yeah." He said, "Have you ever heard of a thing called peripheral vision?" I said, "Oh, I don't know where this is going, but yeah, whatever." I don't remember what I said. He'd say, because I didn't think he could see me because he wasn't looking. He was walking back and forth. So I thought he was looking forward each way. And he says, "I can see everything you're doing." And he'd, and I just like, oh, that was me though.
Yeah.
I hated working out. I hated jumping jacks. I tell my kids, I never really even did push-ups until I was like 19 years old. But after I got rid of the cigarettes, in my mind, I knew I had to replace it with something. And I knew that at that point, that philosophy. And I replaced it with working out. And then I did great. I got really strong and I got up to, I was weighing 230 to 240 at one point and solid muscle. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. And it was strong. It's empowering. If you need to physically move something, you're able to. You're defending yourself. You're more physically able. You're more healthy.
You just feel good moving around all day long, right?
All the above.
And this is cool. We're touching on so many good things here, and we're not going to have time probably to go into all of them as deep as I'd like to. But so you replaced a bad habit with a good habit, but not everybody instinctively knows to do that, right? A lot of people quit smoking and they gain weight, not the healthy kind of weight. They just replace cigarettes with junk food or snacks or candy. So many different things because they don't instinctively know that. They just know they need to quit smoking. So they quit smoking, they get edgy, so they start chewing on candy bars or candy or whatever. So to replace a bad habit with a good habit is very important because something is going to fill the space, right? Like the saying goes, nature abhors a vacuum, right? So you can't just like empty something out and then hope that nothing takes its place. So when you're setting goals, a lot of times what you're going to find out is that just a couple of bad habits are what getting in your way. It's not lack of doing, it's you're just getting in your own way. So you replace a couple of bad habits with a productive habit or non-productive activities with productive activities. You can look at it both ways. You replace those bad habits or non-productive activities with good habits or productive activities one at a time, right? One at a time. If you just do it that way, your success is going to be so much more guaranteed, so much easier, and it'll actually be faster and less frustrating that way.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be something physical. It could be, I don't know, what are some things? All the things I'm thinking of are physical, but I'm trying to think of something. I mean, it's probably better if they're physical, honestly.
When I started my personal development routine, I needed the time to do it. I don't have time. I have 4 children. I have a full-time job. When the heck am I going to find time to work on myself? Right? So I'm certainly not going to do it at the end of the day. I'm exhausted. I have a hard time keeping my eyes open all the way down to the pillow. So I came to the conclusion very early on, is like, well, if I'm going to do this, it's going to have to be in the morning, and it's going to have to be first thing in the morning. Well, I was a snoozer, right? I like to hit snooze. It's another form of procrastination, right? I'll get up in a few more minutes. I'll do it later. But I would hit the snooze button just a few times, 3-4 times. And so, well, there's 30 or 40 minutes wasted every day. It's completely wasted. I'm not getting any more sleep, and I'm not getting anything done. So I said, what's the opposite of snoozing 3 or 4 times? I tried snoozing less times all throughout my life, and that doesn't get you anywhere. It might get you somewhere for a couple of days, and then pretty soon you're back to the whatever your snooze routine is. So it's the exact opposite of that. Is when I wake up, I get up, right? And it's hard for me for a few days, really hard. It's like my body just wanted to go back to bed, right? So alarm went off, I got up, got busy. Second day, third day, fourth day, my body said, nope, we're not getting up. And I was laying there, and I remember thinking to myself, I was like, this is your entire freaking life you're talking about here, dude. Get your butt out of bed. And I got up. And that was, to me, that was a pinnacle moment of that process of establishing that habit. When I wake up, I get up. When I wake up, I get up. And through the course of doing that, I carved out 30 minutes of time for myself every day. And I've been doing that now for almost 3.5 years. Every single day, I get up. I've carved it back all the way now. I get up about an hour, 15 hour and 20 minutes before I need to get ready for work. Right? So that's a habit formed that's changed my life. One habit. It's not even that big of a deal to anybody that's never struggled with hitting the snooze button. Could listen to me saying that and go, yeah, idiot, you've been wasting your life, your whole life. But for me, that was a big deal. That was a big habit I had to change. And without doing that, I wouldn't be able to do the things I do. And I found out that, my body was getting by on that much sleep anyways. I was just wasting that time.
Yeah, you're not doing anything productive.
Yeah. And your body's not getting more productive rest if you're waking up every 9 minutes to go push the dumb button.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And some people actually say it does more harm than anything, because it's your brain's falling back. You're falling back asleep and then waking up, and then while you're falling into a sleep cycle over and over again, so you actually feel groggier, and it's more difficult to wake up and get going.
And so you utilize that time for something better that benefits you?
Yeah, I've been, like I said earlier, there's a difference in being interested in something and being committed, right? When we're interested in something, we'll do it when it's convenient, when it's easy. We might put ourselves out a little bit. When you're committed to doing something, that's what you're going to do. And when I became committed to personal growth, my own personal growth, when I became committed to it, I changed that habit of hitting the snooze button, started getting out of bed every morning. I started getting out of bed in the morning, and I wrote down my list of goals to win my day, 5 goals to win my day. And then I would write down 10 things that I was grateful for, right? And I just started doing that over and over again, every single day. And then I sat down and wrote out like a vision of what I wanted my life to look like 5 years from now. And I wrote that out, and I wrote it down, and I rewrote it every single day for like a month. Partially for the repetitions, partially to hone in on it. You'd write something down 5 or 6 times. You're like, actually, that doesn't sound that cool anymore now that I've written it down 5 or 6 times. It'd actually be better like this. I could use the example of like, you want a motor home with a tow-behind trailer that you can throw a couple of razors in so you can travel around the country with the kids, right? And I started out with a camper, and I was like, it'd be, if I'm going to travel the country, it would really suck to have us all packed into a car. That camper shouldn't be a tow-behind camper. It should be a motorhome. So I changed it to a motorhome, Right? And it's like, if we're going to be cruising on the country in a motorhome, it'd be nice to have a vehicle that you could drive if you're going to stay in a place. So do you get where I'm going with that? You just keep adding to it. And it keeps evolving.
Keep building it.
Yeah, it keeps building and getting better and better. And so you're refining it and building it. And when you start to do that, few things start to happen. Number one, it's on your mind all the time, right? When it's on your mind all the time, you actually start doing things. Sometimes you don't even realize you're doing things getting you towards that goal. The other thing you start doing is you start taking the lid off it a little bit more, right? Start to have a little bit more unlimited thinking, right? When we're limited in our thinking, when we put a lid on our capabilities, our potential, then we put a lid on our life.
But make time, but make time for that, right? Instead of spending hours on your phone, hours watching Netflix and YouTube. I even got to the point where I don't even watch YouTube anymore. I just listen to it. I put it in my pocket, or I have these headphones I wear in the backyard, and I'll wear those. I see you doing that all the time.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Yeah. And I put the headphones on, and I'll be outside, working or doing stuff around the house, or just if I'm not working where I'm wearing the headphones, I have the phone in my pocket just listening to it, or set the phone close to me where I'm working, and stop watching the videos. I just listen to them.
Yeah, I do it when I'm driving. I love listening to the podcasts and stuff that I listen to while I'm driving. I don't. You have time for whatever you make time for, right? Whatever's important to you. And I don't make time to sit down and watch a lot of stuff. A little tradition under our house. I sit down with my little girls and watch a movie on Saturday nights, and that's about it, right?
Yeah, I don't know what the average person spends on their phone, but I would guess it's probably 4 to 5 hours a day at least.
Whatever it is, it's too much.
Yeah, you could run a whole company in the time that people spend on their phones, or at least plan for one, and I don't plan for a lot of other things.
I love quotes and sayings, motivational quotes or inspirational quotes and sayings. I try to put some into my head every single day, and one that can't. So if I'm doing anything on Instagram or Facebook, 99% of it has to do with personal growth, right? So I subscribe to a couple of different greats from the past, but I got one the other day that said, you can either spend your weekend escaping from the life you don't like, or spend it building the life that you want.
Boom.
Yeah. So I just love that. I was like,
that's good.
Because that's what if you just observe the masses, you find most people, that's what most of us do, right? We work all week long. They got songs about it, right?
Yeah.
We dedicate an entire day of the week, dedicate days of the week to professional sports, which there's nothing wrong with that when it's, in moderation. But the NFL has an entire day of the week. College football has, their day or days of the Friday night. So when we spend our entire weekend escaping, watching videos, watching whatever.
People spend their Monday through Friday afternoons. When they get out of work, they're just on their phones and all day. You wouldn't understand that.
I would completely understand. I used to be one of the worst. It was, for me, for years, it was revolved around drinking, right? So we would, when I got into the trade that I'm in, that was a big part of the social structure of it, right? And so for years, it was, Thursday night or Friday, you'd go to happy hour, and then Saturday you'd have a barbecue and a picnic, and then Sunday it'd be football, and then pretty soon, Monday night football, and then they come out with Thursday night football. so you've got all these activities that you can relate to doing whatever it is you did. And for years I did it around drinking. And then as soon as I stopped that, I started thinking, I was like, man, I'm just throwing away so much of my life wrapped up in these activities that aren't helping me do anything other than take up some time.
It takes up a lot of time, and drinking doesn't even necessarily take up the time you're doing at that moment. The next day potentially.
Oh yeah.
Because you could wake up feeling like shit, and you're like, "Oh, I'm not doing nothing today."
I've done it. Too many times to even go into. But yeah.
Yeah. So just that hour or 2 or 3 of partying, or having a good time, or whatever, that could last 2 days.
Yeah, you're not if you overdo it at night, you're not yourself, at least for the first half of the next day, sometimes for a couple of days.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
But
I think the cell phone thing obviously is a huge struggle for a lot of people. And I find for me, like, I hate spending time on my cell phone to the point where I'll just put it away. I'll leave it somewhere that's far away from me. But then sometimes people are calling me about work or whatever it is, trying to get a hold of me. And then like 2 hours later, I'm like, oh, sorry, I missed your call or whatever, which generally I think should be okay if you miss a call and have to answer it later. But, people get upset about that because everybody else has their cell phones in their hand. And I think that's a big excuse a lot of people make. Well, I can't put my cell phone down and this is an argument I have with my wife a lot. I'm like, can you just put it away? And she's like, I can't.
yeah.
There's people calling me for work, and then I look over and she's like on Instagram, and I'm like, yeah, what are you working on? She's like, oh, it's, I'm texting a client or something like that. So that's I think there's a lot of habits that we form, and then we justify them with a little piece of it. And the cell phone's a specifically hard one because we use it to communicate with everybody else around us. But I find that difficult is that there's something that I know, like, oh, I shouldn't be doing that, but there's just a small piece of it that makes it like hard to just say, no, I'm not doing that anymore, because that part is important. So it's like, how do you mitigate that? Like, put all the bad of a specific habit aside and try to keep just the good parts of it without keeping the whole habit. I think that's
that's
difficult.
a good point. Why is it so hard to change?
So we're touching on all that stuff. It's so great. Your brain is the most sophisticated pharmacy known to man, right? So we were talking about drinking just a minute ago, and that's an addiction. But all these things that we're talking about on social media, Instagram, texting, all the behaviors that we engage in, some of those, and I am not a doctor or a scientist or a neuroendocrinologist or a quantum physicist or any of those things. So let me preface it by saying that. But we get little releases, and you can look. There's some great places to look this up. Dr. Joe Dispenza's dedicated most of his adult life to this, and the research that's coming out now is so phenomenal. But when you get a like on Facebook or Instagram, or somebody loves something, you get a little hit of a chemical, right? And that makes you feel a certain way. And then you get that hit over and over and over again, and you become addicted to that hit. Kids playing video games get addicted to that rush that they get when they hit the next level, when they kill the guy, when they do whatever with the car. All those things create little addictions within us. And really, if you really think about it, the end result of every experience you have in your life is an emotion, a feeling, right? And that feeling, that emotion, is a chemical released by your brain. So when we get addicted to those likes, those thumbing through those reels, some of it's just the action of going like this, right? But we can see it with so many destructive things with video games and pornography and things like that, where it just keeps getting more and more intense or worse. What's the next level? What's the next thing we can do to make it greater than that? Gambling's a great example of that, where this rush doesn't become good enough anymore. So we need to make it this one, and we need to make it this one, and we need to make it this one. So it gets so hard. So we become addicted to those behaviors, we become addicted to those emotions, we become addicted to those situations that give us those feelings, and it's hard to change, right? Because you're addicted to potentially a life that you didn't even want to begin with.
Yeah, just real quick, what's wild is that what you just explained is what we all know as like the typical drug addict's journey, right? You start with something small, and then they take more and more, and then they move to the next thing for the next, and except for it's the exact same thing, but we're applying it to a cell phone or a video game.
Jeremiah and I had the conversation right before we started about Pong, and now it's got to be Grand Theft Auto, or I don't know what the latest and greatest one is, where you got to kill and rape and steal and do all this stuff to get the rush of the video game. It used to be if we just went. Dun, dun, dun.
Well, even beyond Grand Theft Auto, I feel like is an older stimulant for game players. Now they have more lifelike video games where it's almost like it's real.
Right. Yep.
They're pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
I don't play them because I can't play video games because I start getting all wheezy, and I just like I got better things to do than sit around and play video games. But I've seen them like on commercials and stuff like that, and I've never really seen them in person. Maybe I should check one out. I don't know. Maybe I'll get addicted. I don't know. But they look super cool and realistic. Yep. But the porno
The porn thing.
pornography. Sorry, I can't even say it.
That's right.
Which is a good thing, I think, that I'm not able to pronounce it. The pornography. The actor Terry Crews was talking about that. I don't know if you know him. He's the big.
I know who Terry Crews is. Yeah.
Big buff guy. He was saying that he was so addicted to pornography that when he would go to have, relationships with his wife, sexual relations, with his wife, he says it just wasn't. It was affecting that. Like he wasn't stimulated.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, like, not to say that she's less attracting to him, but all that other fantasy you create in your mind, it just makes it unrealistic for you. So when you go back to just your wife, it messes it up. It affects it.
And you can, the same thing's true with the video games or even with gambling, right? You're probably familiar with who John Daly is, the famous golfer.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about that in a interview that he did about his and I'm just gonna do like a real quick paraphrase of it, but it went from the the dollar slots to the $10 slots to the $100 slots to the $1,000 slots, and it just it's the same action, right? You pull the lever, the wheels spin, you win, you lose, mostly lose, right? What's the difference between $1 and $10,000 a pull? Right, it's the addiction. It's the rush that you get. It's like, holy. I mean, if I pulled the handle on $10,000, I'd probably pass out. Especially when it didn't hit.
I would cash in. I'm out of there. Especially if I'm not 10,000 deep. Oh man, hopefully I just spend $5.
I mean, he tells the story, and it's pretty profound what a deep dark hole that goes into.
Yeah,
and and it can be that way. So playing a video game for entertainment is fine when you play a video game for entertainment.
But then real life doesn't stimulate you anymore.
Well, it doesn't when you play the video games over and over and over, so that because your body is modifying its receptors, right, to accommodate your addiction, right? And then it says, I'm modifying my receptors, give me more, and then you try to cut it off by going back to reality, and your body's like, this is boring. What are we doing here?
Right.
Let's get back into the thing where we can get the action that we're used to here. This out here, this real life stuff is lame. It's mundane. I modified myself for you. Now get back in there and give me my fix, right? And then we're addicted to that. It's just as powerful with this thing here going as it is with the video game where you're all in like this and your blood pressure's skyrocketing and you're in it to win it.
You're getting stimulated either way.
You're getting the hits are coming. The chemicals are being released, the bonds being formed, and then you wake up one morning and decide, you know what? I'm gonna do personal growth. I'm gonna stop wasting my life on this. I'm doing everything on that, and then it's 8:00 in the morning, and your body's like, hey, you should be thumbing through your Instagram right about now. And you're like, nope, I'm not doing it. And then your body's like, hey, it's about time to scroll through your TikTok or your Facebook, and you're not doing it, and you're like, well, I'm not doing it, right? And then pretty soon you're just over here in full-on withdrawal, right?
Yeah, Jordan Peterson was saying one time, I heard him say that boredom is one of the most healthiest things for us. So if you're right,
just unplug.
I forget exactly what he said in the context of that statement. But look it up. Look up what Jordan Peterson says about boredom, and it made sense to me because when you're bored, and you're just sitting there, I don't think you could be outside next to a river or sitting like in a forest or something you enjoy. That's not boredom. I mean, actually, I would say almost put yourself in kind of an empty room or something. And
I think I know what you're talking about. I think I recall the same interview where he said, I think his example was to sit in a chair and stare at a spot at a wall for like 5 minutes. And he said most people aren't capable of that.
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
Going to be a great way for us to segue into another part that I wanted to make sure we hit on.
Oh yeah, what is it?
Yeah. Meditation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yep. Right now. So it has a lot of it has to do with brainwaves and coherent and incoherent states of brain activity. And when we sit right here having this conversation, you and I and Michael, we're in like low beta, right? And if I say something, and that's just a waking, conscious, analytical state. It's perfectly normal to be sitting here in beta brainwaves. And if I say something to you that kind of gets your attention, you kind of drift off a little bit, thinking about it, daydreaming a little bit, you might slip down into some alpha level brainwave patterns, which is just kind of like that daydreamy state, awake, but you've been sitting there doing something and somebody's had to call out your name 2 or 3 times before you're like, yeah, what? Because you were in alpha. If I was to tell you when we were done here, hey, Jeremiah, after we're done with all this, I'm just going to ask you to write me a quick summary of everything that we talked about today and what the importance of it and the name of the different chemicals that your brain releases in this process. You might be like, wait, what? And you might just move up into some mid-beta, right? Your brain waves get a little bit faster. And if we get stressed out, right, something happened, the lion jumps out from behind the bush, right? And you go into that survival mode, that fight, flight, or hide survival response. That's high beta. When we're living our life on the hormones of stress, we're in the video game, we're on here, we're driving in traffic, we've got the meeting, we've got the unhappy client, we've got all these things. You're constantly in survival mode. You're in run, fight, or hide mode all the time. Like most adults in our civilization are spending 65 to 70% of their waking days in survival mode. And that is not healthy. It's healthy to go into survival mode to survive, but human beings are the only creatures that, so far as we know, we're the only creatures that can put ourselves into survival mode by thought alone, right? Nothing even has to happen. You could be driving down the street, right? Somebody could cut you off, maybe flip you off, and you could be like, that son of a gun. And then that causes you to think about a situation at work. And that causes you to think about a situation on another job. And then you think about this. And then you see some guy on his phone while he's driving, you're like, what are you doing? Text me. And all of a sudden, like, you arrive at work and you're a raging lunatic, all from thought alone, right?
It's funny you say that. I was just thinking that in my mind as an example, but I was thinking about how different I am in 2 scenarios. When I'm driving to work or I'm running around town doing everything I have to do for my businesses or my work and stuff, you're a little more like that, what you explained. But if I'm driving to the mountains to go camping for the weekend and there's still crazy drivers doing this and that, and I'm just like, oh, okay, well, watch out for that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Oh, whoa, that's a crazy driver.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Because where I'm going,
Yeah.
I'm getting away.
And I do the same exact thing.
I feel like an old man
do.
then.
Yeah. You're like, yeah. But if you got to be somewhere,
Yeah.
right? And you've got other stuff on your mind and somebody's impacting or you perceive they're impacting your ability to get there in time, now they've become a threat to your survival, right? Chemically speaking, in your body. They've become a threat to your survival, right? Now you get fired up, right? The problem is that when you're driving down the road, you're pumping in a closed system, right? Your body's mobilizing energy, right? Your heart's beating faster, you're absorbing more oxygen, you're getting ready for this confrontation that never happens, right? You're pumping against a closed system. In nature, when that happens, you run and you expend that energy. You fight, you expend that energy, right? You hide, the danger passes, you chill back out.
I think something that helps too, and you did this today when you showed up here today, because you showed up early today, which I appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah.
It just goes in line with what you are teaching and talking about today. But I think that also helps you in those other scenarios. If you plan on being somewhere early, 15 minutes early, then you're not going to stress as much on your drive to that destination. You're going to be a lot more calm.
I can feel a difference in my body right now just from going into that, explaining that scenario where I was doing that stuff. I can feel my skin feels warmer. I can feel all those things happening. And I lived many years of my life that way. Just frustrated, in a hurry, angry, upset. Nothing was going fast enough. Nothing was going my way. This guy's an idiot. That guy's an idiot, whatever. And when I got out of that long enough to realize I was in it, it was like,
well, the industry we were in and the positions we were in. I mean,
you're programmed to be that
Yeah.
way, right? You're taught that if you're not that way, you're probably not a good fit for this position because you don't care.
Right. Right.
The guy that's most upset about what's going on is obviously the guy that cares the most about the situation.
Yeah. That's the guy that's fit for the job. The guy's like, no, man, it's cool, man.
The superintendent that's throwing and kicking and screaming stuff and yelling at, that's the guy. Man, that guy must be really good at what he does because look at how intense he is.
Yeah.
And I literally, like, my mentor in the industry was like that, and I looked up to him. And so guess what I did? I worked really hard to become just like him.
Was that Bill?
No.
Oh.
No, but I don't know who Bill is, but it could have been.
Yeah.
But
I don't want to say his last name.
That's fine, because there's a bunch of Bills out there, right?
Yep.
And looking back on it now, I mean, I spent so many years of my life working so hard to become that, and it's like, wow. And that was what I was being taught, right? I didn't do anything wrong. I was taught to do that, and
It's an aggressive industry.
Yeah,
yeah, and a lot of industries out there are like that.
yeah.
We're working at a place right now down in Boulder, and all of the people at the facility are so nice and so chill. They'll put their foot down if they need to,
Right.
but for the most part, if we're doing what we need to do, they're so good to work for. And I'm like, man, I even told them, like, it was like a week or two ago, I said, you guys are amazing to work
That's
for.
cool.
Like, you guys are a breath of fresh air, because most people in the industry out there, this is the construction industry for people who don't know what we're talking about. Most people in that industry, in the commercial and industrial world, man, they're high strong, man.
Yeah. That's precisely why I left it. I didn't know at the time about some of the other things, but that's precisely why I left.
Yeah.
So, but we got sidetracked here, and I was talking to you about brainwave patterns and stuff like that. So we get into that survival mode. Well, the other side of that is, and Michael was talking about, most people can't sit at the wall and just stare at the wall for 5 minutes because we're in one of those beta brain states, right? We're just wound up, and when we start to leave that space, we think something's wrong. I'm starting to I need some stimulus somewhere out there. There's got to be something going on, something to do. When we can retreat from that long enough to get ourselves down into alpha or even theta. So then from alpha goes theta, and that's theta. If you're in theta and you're awake, you're in a light sleep. You're awake, but your body's so relaxed. And then delta is like deep sleep, right? If you can regulate yourself down into alpha and theta brainwave patterns and sit there and stare at the wall, or close your eyes and stay awake. And there's ways to do that. I mean, there's lots of people out there teaching this stuff, right? What happens is your autonomic nervous system is comprised of your parasympathetic nervous system and your sympathetic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system is that survival response, that run, fight, hide. Your parasympathetic is in charge of growth and repair. Well, they don't function simultaneously. So when you spend your life in stress, in survival, your sympathetic nervous system is taking the front seat, your parasympathetic nervous system takes the back seat. That was easy for me to say. And that is where, I mean, so many of these the health conditions come from, right? Is your parasympathetic nervous system isn't given the opportunity to do what it does quite naturally, which is maintain the body. So when you can do that, and you can learn to regulate yourself back down and get out of survival mode, then your parasympathetic nervous system can start doing what it's supposed to do, more than just for the couple hours a night, maybe, when you get into some good deep sleep.
So the parasympathetic, how do you get that to advance to where you want it?
Just by doing what I said, by getting by getting out of the way. That's the biggest thing. It does its job quite normally.
So you don't focus on getting that to advance. You focus on depressing the things that block that.
Yeah, you just gotta retreat from all of that long enough. And like, I'd like to do it in the morning. I like to start my day off that way, right? And then at night you can do some reflection. And there's lots of research on it for either end of the spectrum, morning or night or anytime during the day. And lots of people, I mean, you've heard people talk about just stopping and taking 10 deep breaths. There's real science behind that. That's not just like something you do to keep from choking the guy next to you. real science in some of the physiology that takes place when you can just do that. Because when your breathing normalizes, your heart rate slows, and when your heart rate slows, things just start. The goal is to be in homeostasis, right? And that's the normal place. You don't want to be so detached from life. You're just like, yeah, whatever, man, it's cool, and nothing gets you riled up. But you don't want to be in stress all day long, right? The adaptive part of the fight or flight mechanism is keeping yourself alive, right? That's very important. But it's also important to be able to relax and recover. If you are just, if you're walking around in the woods and you hear something growl, it's normal to get heightened and focused. What's that growling? And if you find out that is a threat to you, like in the story of the mountain lion or the bear and the deer or even the human, then your next logical thing to do is to be like, okay, I'm focused on the threat. Now I'm going to focus on how do I get myself out of danger. And that's going to take some time, right? So I become focused on how much time is it going to take for me to get myself out of danger to a safe place and preserve the body. Well, when we live our life that way,
yeah,
we're destroying ourselves.
Right.
That adaptive software becomes maladaptive.
Yes, because it's good to have that in you.
Yeah.
When needed, it's
Yeah.
going to help you.
You hear a horn honk and you look because you stepped out into the street. It's good to have the response to jump back out of the way, right?
But you don't want to have that just every second of all day.
Yeah, you just don't want to be. If you're waiting for that, if you're walking around living your life waiting for that to happen, that's not cool.
Yeah, there was I think it was Andrew Huberman. I don't know if you know who he is. I think he's a Harvard neurobiologist at Harvard, professor. I might have that wrong, but anyways, I was listening to him talking about what you were talking about is fight or flight mode, how people are in fight or flight mode all the time, and it releases that adrenaline into your body, and that's exactly what you need in that situation. But the problem is that when it happens to us when we're sitting in a chair, you then have all this adrenaline in your body, and it's great if you do something with it, but we can't do something with it if we're sitting on the couch. And it actually ends up, and I can't remember exactly what all it does, but it has physically negative effects on your body, and it deteriorates your body because you have to do something with this adrenaline and you're not using it properly.
Yeah, I'm sure it becomes toxic to you, and there's medical explanations and definitions for all of the different things that happen, but essentially there's a buildup of adrenaline, other chemicals in your body that you don't use. And so they become a toxin in your body that has to be gotten rid of. And on the other side of that, as we were talking about with the nervous system, pumping against a closed system, you're just pumped up. Your blood pressure's high. You're out of homeostasis, and we need to. So if you can retreat and get yourself back to homeostasis, all kinds of beautiful things happen, including desire to accomplish more. Right? When you're in survival mode all day long, the last thing on your mind is, it might be on your mind like, God, I got to do something to get out of this. I got to take a vacation or something. But the last thing on your mind is, how am I going to sit down and rationally plan out some development for my future? I'm worried about, this thing right now that's in front of me. And I'm not taking any time in my life to plan for the future. I'm just in reaction mode all the time.
So there's a few items that people have to check off the list on the plan to move forward with change. It's you can't just write it down. You cannot just create a schedule. You cannot just do the follow through. You cannot just get your mind right. You have to do all of those things in combination with each other. You can't just do one or two. It's good to do all of those things because you want to have that toolbox of all those items. Otherwise, I feel like you're only going halfway. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And if you have a schedule that you live by, that's good for that part of your life, right? And if you have the kids on a schedule to teach them, to keep them going, right? To keep them moving forward in an organized way and to teach them that part of it. But if they're following the schedule in resentment the whole time, then what's going to happen when the schedule's not there anymore?
Yeah, if you're just yelling at them like, hey,
Yeah.
did you do your homework? Hey, where are you at on the schedule? Hey, did you do this? They're stressed out.
Yeah. And as soon as the yeller's gone, Dad's gone, we don't need the schedule anymore.
Yeah.
Back to, now it's just woo, right? So teaching them how to think about it, right? Why it's important, the how, the why behind the how becomes more important.
Get them to buy in on it.
Yeah.
Get them to understand the benefits of it.
I'm not an expert on ice baths. I do know that there's some benefits behind it, right? And that knowing those benefits enables you to sit in an ice bath for a decent length period of time. If you take someone that has no idea, just knows that ice water causes hypothermia and kills you, and you throw them into an ice bath, they're going to go hypothermic very quickly, and if you don't get them out, they'll die. But if you take somebody that understands the benefit of the ice bath, all the things that it's going to do for them, and you put them in the ice bath, they can stay in there and reap the benefits. Same bucket of cold water, two completely different outcomes, all because of an understanding.
That's like the you ever hear you blindfold somebody and say you're going to touch an ice cube or a fire to their finger, or you hold a lighter and in front of them and then you put a blindfold on and then you put an ice cube on their finger, you can actually burn them. Yeah, they'll receive burns from, or it feels hot to them, just because the brain has done that.
They'll receive burns?
I don't know if they'll get, maybe they won't get burns, but
okay.
But
They'll feel a burning sensation.
You'll
perceive it.
Perceive it as hot.
Yeah.
You've done that. Even if you touch something cold enough, it feels like a burn because your brain's perceiving it that way.
Right. That I agree with.
But he's totally right. You if you don't understand why you're doing something, like the worst. I'm glad we got to this. What's the worst thing your parents ever said to you when you were a kid? When you said, "Why do I have to do that, Dad?"
Because I said so.
Yeah, because I said so. Because that's absolutely meaningless.
That was that generation too, though.
Yeah, but that's you.
Yeah.
You just, I know what you want. I know what I wanted to say. I didn't say it because I knew what the repercussions of that, and they weren't good either. We were negatively reinforced through so many parts of our lives. At least most of the people I know, especially in that generation. Because I said so. Because that doesn't give me anything to move forward with. Because as soon as the person that's saying so is gone, then I no longer have to do it because I haven't attached any.
There's no education there.
Yeah, there's no meaning attached to it. Yeah, so when we assign meaning to the things that we're doing, then not only are we more likely to do them, but we're more likely to receive the benefit from doing them. So when we talk about, this is so cool to me because to me, for my entire life, the word meditation had a stigma attached to it, several actually, and I'm not going to go into them all here, but now there's enough science behind it, and guys in general, like, this is broadly speaking, right? Broadly speaking, men need the science. Women appreciate it. Men need it. There's enough science behind meditation and brain and slowing your brain waves down and getting coherence going on in your brain waves and in your heart that you can't really ignore it. Once you have the information, it's hard to ignore it. And once you have the information on what the benefits of it are, then you start to actually, receive some of the benefits.
Not understanding a lot of those things. I think, like you said, it just doesn't allow you to move forward to make being successful with those things. It's very difficult if you don't know why you're doing something. Sometimes it's just kind of, you're going to run in circles, or not just quit. You're going to give up.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So coming back to what Michael said about sitting at the wall and staring at it for 5 minutes, and then going back to what you said about the 4 different pieces, if you don't know what the benefits are of slowing your brainwaves down or how to do it, and you sit there and stare at the wall, you're just sitting there frustrated. Right? You're just mad. So at the end of the 5 minutes, you're not any better off because now you're just frustrated that you sat there and wasted 5 minutes. Right? But if you understand the benefit of what it's doing, and you can actually go through the process, then at the end of 5 minutes, maybe at the very least, you're calmed down a little bit, right? You just get to reset yourself.
So people are going to have to do their own research. Obviously, I don't have all the, the links or resources to give people at this moment. But I know at my jiu-jitsu gym, I know they're really big into yoga and meditation as well as I mean, these guys kick ass. They do kickboxing and twist people up and choke people out. But there's also a portion where they bring it down. And I haven't gone to those classes, but I've been wanting to. But yeah, I encourage people to find somebody local to them, and start, finding people that can help them with some types of meditation. Yeah.
There's all kind. I mean, for me personally, my mentor starting out in personal development was Bob Proctor, and he never used the word meditation, but he talked about it for 40 years. But when he started doing this, you got to remember, he's in the 1960s and into the 70s. And if you said meditation to a boardroom of corporate executives,
they thought you were a pot smoking hippie or something.
They'd laugh you right out of the room.
Yeah.
Right? So there was no doing that. And he carried that right up until through the day he passed. But he talked about it all the time. Well, now,
what terms would he use to describe it?
He would just say you got to sit there and totally relax,
reflect,
and
relax,
picture yourself having achieved the good that you desire, right? And then he would move into some other descriptions of just being relaxed. He would go through some relaxation exercises with you, right? And you can find his stuff. It's all over YouTube and the internet, tons of it. But he never really talked about the science much behind it. Dr. Joe talks about the science behind it, and that's what spoke to me. Like, you got to, when you're doing your research, the point being to all this is that you want to do the research, and you want to keep researching. Don't ever quit, right? Don't ever quit researching whatever it is that you're passionate about or whatever it is that you think is going to help you. Keep reading and watching and listening until you find something that resonates with you, right? And then repeat that information to yourself until you're bored with it.
No, I'm glad you're bringing it up, because I don't have resources to offer people. And we're talking about meditating, but I can't sit here and tell people do this, do that, because I don't even do it myself. But you said Dr. Joe?
Dr. Joe Dispenza. If you go to YouTube and just hit Dr. Joe Dispenza, tons of his stuff comes up. Tons of his podcasts, his meditations, they all come up. He's got his website. And I'm not affiliated with him in any way. I just love his stuff because he was able to explain the science behind it. And for me, that's what I needed in order to take a step forward, because I grew up thinking, this is pot smoking hippie stuff, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that. I have pot smoking hippie friends. There's nothing wrong with that. It all just wasn't me.
No, there's definitely just stereotypes back then with the stiffs.
Yep.
But
and so when you can start to read this stuff, and he's got like 4 books, I think, maybe 5, and he cites the research that he's quoting in his books, and that's a big, deep rabbit hole. You could spend your life just researching the research and never go anywhere. We want to be a little bit more involved in it. Like, we want to be pragmatic about it. We want to actually take the information and then put it to use. So I watched a couple of his podcasts, and that got me interested in him enough to read one of his books. And I'm just blown away. And so I started practicing what he talked about, and I started following the formula that he talks about following. And it's for those of us people, I would say dudes, but people in general, that like to know why they're doing something before they do it. I don't need every piece of information, but I need enough to get me moving. It got me moving. And it's just been awesome since then.
Thank you for that. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah.
What was the name again of the doctor?
Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what we were just talking about? It triggered a thought in my head, right? Because we've all heard a lot of talk about, like, meditate and visualize what you want to achieve, and that'll help you achieve it. And in my mind, that was always kind of like a bunch of hooey,
Yeah.
Like, okay, great, yeah, whatever. What's that going to do for me? But as you were talking, I had this thought. If there was something I wanted really bad, say I wanted a sports car, right? Say like a C8 Corvette, right? And yeah, if I had expendable money, yeah, sure, I might buy that car. That'd be cool. And I've thought about that before. But if I went to a dealership every single day and said, hey, can I just sit in the car? And I sat in the car every day and looked at it for like 5 minutes, I think I would want that car a whole lot more. And I would probably come up with ways to try and get that car. Same thing if you're sitting and staring at a wall or whatever, meditating for 5 minutes, probably maybe not to the same degree, but thinking about what you want to achieve. You said think about the greatness you want to achieve. So you think about whether that's a career goal, or I think about this car, think about sitting in this car, or you look at a picture of the car or whatever for 5 minutes every day. I mean, you're almost achieving the same thing. You're still putting the images and thoughts into your brains. And that kind of clicked to me like, oh, maybe it's not as much hooey as I always thought it was.
Manifesting, that's what they call that, right? You manifest things.
Throughout all of history, all of the great leaders, all the way back thousands of years, they've disagreed on almost everything except one topic. And that one thing that they've all agreed upon is that we become what we think about, right? And Michael's just talking about it, but Einstein said it a little bit more succinctly. And Einstein said everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but achieve that reality. And then he said it can be no other way. It's not philosophy, it's physics.
That's some boss shit right there.
So I've said that. I love that quote. I've said it over and over and over again. And it takes on a little bit more meaning. So, our belief about something is based upon our evaluation of it. Right? And frequently when we reevaluate something, our belief about that something will change. Right? So if you find something that resonates with you and you read it or listen to it, you're gonna catch so much of it, right? And your brain's gonna do this while you're listening to it, right? So you'll listen, you'll hear something like, wow, that's some boss shit. And you'll go, and you'll think about it for a while. Meanwhile, the recording's still playing, but you're not really listening to it. You're thinking about what you just heard. Then you'll come back down and you'll hear some more. Well, you have to listen to that same information dozens of times, if not more, before you've actually heard it all. You might think you've heard it, but before you've actually consciously heard it all, you have to listen to it dozens of times. And if you just try this thing with yourself, find something that you like to listen to, a piece of information, real stuff, not fiction, real stuff that you like, whether it's a paragraph or a saying or a quote that you really like, but something decent length but not too long, like a paragraph. And read it or listen to it every single day at the same time of day for 30 days. And just note to yourself what happens somewhere between day 22 and 28. Just do it. I'm not going to tell you what happens. You got to do it yourself. But something happens. Something cool happens.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge. Yeah.
Challenge accepted. So where can somebody find you? And so do you actually do coaching with people? You have clients, I'd imagine. And you actually mentor people.
Yes. Yeah, and a big part of the people I'm mentoring right now is through my 9 to 5, so to speak. But I have a Facebook group, and I do a little live broadcast every Saturday morning at 8 a.m., Saturday Mountain Time. Just about 20 minutes, and part of that is going through steps of mentoring people. Like, we start with goal setting. We start with, we talk about habits and good habits and replacing bad habits with good habits. We talk about the faculties of the mind. We talk about the conscious versus the subconscious mind. We talk about self-image. We talk about fear. We talk about attitude. We talk about leadership. We talk about all those things in a organized, succinct way to guide you from inception to fruition, if you will.
What is that Facebook called?
It's Path to Freedom. If you look, I'm going to borrow this from you so that I get all the letters right. It's Path to Freedom Group. But the group is just called Path to Freedom.
Can they just search that on Facebook and it comes up?
Yep. So if you go at Path to Freedom Group, that's actually the call for it on Facebook. Or my personal Facebook page is matt.carhart.58.
We'll link all these things in the description.
Perfect. Awesome. At Path to Freedom group, I do that broadcast every Saturday morning, and I don't do a whole lot else there right now. I've got a little over 300 people in the group. But I'm just trying to put some content out there every week that people can get some value from. Free of charge, obviously. It's all free of charge in the group. The coaching, I have several clients, past and present clients that I'm working with in various forms. So we do everything from just like consultation phone calls, 1 hour consultation phone call just to give you some stuff that you can do, stuff that you can work with, all the way up to I have a 6-month coaching program that we can do too.
And there was something else you were telling me about before, which you're not ready to release to the world. And so I won't mention any of that, but you are working on something you said is going to be pretty good.
Yeah. And that's going to be more industry specific. But that's something that, I'm really excited about. And it's, we talked a lot early on, especially today, about, getting results that stick, right? Getting people to do stuff consistently over a long period of time. And we see it all the time with our employees, our children, our friends, ourselves, where we want to do something, and we know how. Everybody knows how to do better than they're doing right now, right? You know you could be doing things differently or better than you're doing right now, and for some reason you don't do them. And we just call that the gap, the knowing doing gap, right? And getting people across that gap is so important.
Well, Mr. Matt Carhart, thank you. That was great, and I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Loved it.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to have you back someday.
Awesome.
Soon.
I'd love to be back.
Absolutely.
All right, let me know.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.